This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
I just received a letter from a student who thanked me for instilling the love of math in him. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and welcome back to Secretary Todd Haymore. Started to say Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, but I know, and our viewers know, that that's where you served for quite a few years under two governors, but now are in Commerce and Trade. So we will talk Commerce and Trade, we'll talk Ag, and we'll talk about the issues that you want to tell us about here in October of what's really happening in the Commonwealth. People sometimes have focused on what they think is a downturn somewhat in the economy, or not growing as fast as it would. And certainly in your secretariat, you and the governor are working to keep things moving as best we can.
David, thanks for having me back.
Yes.
And I'm very guilty of still introducing myself sometime as Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry. In fact, I had to pause before Senate Finance Committee the other day to make sure that I said the right title, but
Right.
It's been an honor and a privilege to serve Governor McAuliffe and Governor McDonnell as Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, and now as Secretary of Commerce and Trade, and really had a good time. There's a lot of things going on as it relates to commerce and trade, and there's a lot of things that we were really successful in some cases starting from scratch and building into a really solid infrastructure in agriculture and forestry. And I think in both cases they're all about building this new Virginia economy that you hear Governor McAuliffe talk about all the time, and one economy that's less reliant on federal dollars and more reliant on good old-fashioned private sector monies and entrepreneurialism and all the things that go on there. But from the standpoint of the economy, things are going pretty well. Obviously, we didn't meet a target in the budget that we had hoped for, and that was a broad coalition of Republicans, Democrats, independents, economists, and so forth that set a target. The economy didn't live up to it, so government still grew. It just didn't grow to the level that we thought. So we're in the process now of right-sizing budgets and so forth. But from the standpoint of the focus on building that new Virginia economy and trying to attract new business to the state from other places, overseas, helping existing business in Virginia grow and expand, that is the focus each and every day. And even in my new role, most of what I did in agriculture and forestry over the last 7 years was focused on domestic economic development and global trade, trying to move more exports into the global marketplace. The governor made it very clear to me that even though I'm going to a larger secretariat and many more agencies and a sort of a broader portfolio, my focus is still on working with other agencies, other private sector interests, the General Assembly and others, on economic development and moving more product in the global marketplace, because ultimately that's what's going to provide the resources for Virginia to continue being the great state that it is.
I was in the room when you were testifying or speaking before Senate Finance. I guess not really testifying per se.
It feels that way
but,
sometimes.
But with the way that acronyms have a way of developing in many places and certainly in government, there's a new acronym that people either have heard about or will be hearing about, VITAL. And tell our viewers something about.
Well, within the General Assembly this past year, the governor and the General Assembly approved a bill, signed the bill into law that would carve out the international trade division at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and it would be going in part of one of the programs there, Vital, VITAL, a number of others would go into creating the Virginia International Trade Corporation. And we're in the process of doing that. It would be a standalone state agency. There are some issues, as we discussed in Senate Finance, that have to be overcome. It's just like any other piece of legislation as it moves through the process of an idea and turning into legislation, having the final discussions and signing a bill into law. There are things that come up afterwards that you have to address, and that's what we're in the process of doing now. Senate Finance had me up 2 weeks ago. House Appropriations will have me in next week to just talk about this. But at the end of the day, the plan is the same. It's making sure that Virginia maintains its status as the preeminent exporting state in America. We are second to none as far as our export programs are concerned, whether it's helping small businesses export for the first time or helping larger businesses grow, expand their footprint in the global marketplace. Last year we did about $36 billion of trade, exports into the global marketplace, products going all around the world, a very, very diversified portfolio of products going out, manufactured products, but also services. And Virginia also has the benefit of having about a 50-50 split, maybe tilted one way or the other, on making sure that it's not just products, but it's also those services, the brain power things that can be exported and utilized around the world. So very proud of that and wanted to be sure, because at the end of the day, the more products we move into the global marketplace, the more opportunities there are for us back home. 90% of the world, actually more than 90% of the world's customers live outside of the United States. We are an economic superpower. Make no mistake about it. But as far as customer base is concerned, very, very small. So we're trying to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to move more product in the marketplace. And there was a study that recently came out that also said that more than 80% of all economic growth over the next 5 years is going to occur outside the United States. So again, more opportunities in the global marketplace for Virginia businesses to take advantage of. And our products are in demand. Our services are in demand. I've seen it obviously many, many times in agriculture and forestry, and now I'm seeing it more from the commerce and trade side with manufactured products and the services. So VITC, the trade corporation, is going to be hopefully implemented come the spring of 2017, and we're working through that with our friends in the General Assembly and private sector stakeholders to make happen now.
Well, moving from a secretary with 3 agencies, now with 13, you certainly have a much broader range to be working on. One of those that it gets, again, the acronym on time, VEDP, as I hear it referenced, and our viewers should know or will know, that's Virginia Economic Development Partnership.
Right.
That's been going through some transitions too, I suppose, partially because of Vital and
a little bit of it's. There's a study here in the General Assembly by the Joint Commission that looks at agencies and state government processes. That's taking place right now. There have been a couple of issues that have come up with VEDP, but make no mistake about it, with everything that's going on from the standpoint of finding a new CEO for the organization, a study here in the General Assembly. We are working with them on a regular basis, daily in fact, making sure that they're doing everything that they can to fulfill their mission, which is to help Virginia's economy grow and prosper. They are recruiting new businesses from other states and overseas to Virginia, and they're helping existing businesses grow. And then you put the piece in about trade, which is very, very important. I mean, for me, someone who came from the private sector into state government, who'd done a lot of economic development, but really focusing on global trade, that's a very, very key piece of it. So whether it stays inside or it goes alone as a standalone state agency, which is what we're working on now, very, very, very important. So a lot of changes going on there, but the mission is the same, and we have a very engaged board of directors. The board is probably, at VEDP, is probably as engaged and in the weeds on some issues as they've ever been. It's been a privilege working with them, and I get to communicate things that the governor wants to do, and in some cases I'm getting advice and counsel from members of the House and the Senate on things. So working with my colleague, Secretary Rick Brown, and others on that board, not only hiring the new CEO, but making sure the organization is being reorganized properly and keeping its focus on economic development and job growth. So change is occurring, but at the end of the day, we're going to make things better than it was beforehand, and it's going to keep on serving Virginia the way it has for the last 20 years. It was created under the Allen administration. And someone said to me, actually in the General Assembly building about a week or so ago, that, change occurs, and at 20 years is a long time in the grand scheme of things, so you need to look at making some changes and making updates, and I think that's what we're doing now, and hopefully by the end of the McAuliffe administration we'll have VEDP humming right along and doing great work that it's been doing over the last 20 years.
Well, as a son of Southside and someone very much acquainted with tobacco, the Tobacco Revitalization Commission now is very much a part of your bailiwick of what you're doing, and another place where you serve on that board.
Right. Yeah, the Tobacco Commission is doing great work in Southside and Southwest Virginia, that 34-county footprint that was established in the late 90s with the leads from two gentlemen from Southern Virginia who I'm proud to say are friends, Senator Charles Hawkins and Delegate Whit Clement. Their legacy lives on to this day.
They worked that out.
They did. And Virginia's held up as a good example of how the monies from the Master Settlement Agreement from between the tobacco industry and governments back in the 90s played out. There were a lot of states who took that money and just dumped it right into
balanced their budget right for a year or two.
Exactly, and that's gone. Virginia did it differently. We in fact had several different pools of money, and the one that we're referencing now with Tobacco Commission was designed to help diversify the economies of those regions of the state that were hit hard by the decline in tobacco production. So a lot of things going on in Southern Virginia and in Southwest Virginia aimed at growing the economy, diversifying the economy. Evan Feinman is the director there, working with Terry Kilgore, who's the leader from the House side of it, Frank Ruff, the lead from the Senate. So a good group of people, and I've enjoyed working with them. Some of them are longtime personal friends, but the focus remains the same there, and that's economic development, diversification, and job growth. And I think that you look at, I'm biased, obviously. Danville's my hometown, but there's a lot of things going on in Danville. I think they've had 3 or 4 economic development projects this year alone that have been tied to Governor McAuliffe's efforts of recruiting, VEDP's efforts, but also the Tobacco Commission stepping forward. So I like it. Anytime that you can have different agencies in state government working together, bipartisanship with Republican leadership and the Tobacco Commission, with Democratic leadership of Terry McAuliffe coming together for job growth and diversification. That's what we're supposed to be doing in government. So the Tobacco Commission has been an important part of revitalizing the economy of Southwest and Southside Virginia, and will continue to be a force in the future as well, and one that I hope I can provide some good oversight and counsel to in the remaining 16 months that we have in office.
Well, in order to be, a force for the future, it would appear that the commission is working more now to have loans than necessarily outright grants, and maybe doing some of each, certainly, but looking ahead and seeing that if everything was done in a grant, there would be a time in the near future that money would all be gone.
That's a good way. It's a great way to diversify their impact in helping Southwest and Southside Virginia, and the move to offering more low-interest loans to help spur economic growth. And in some cases, small business being the backbone of the entire nation's economy, and some of these companies don't need mega grants. They don't need, but if they can have a targeted low-interest loan that can help them get going and help them establish and get up and running, that's all they need. And I think it's been a wise decision by the Tobacco Commission to diversify beyond straight grants into loans, and one that, again, I think, here we are 17, 18, 19 years later from the creation of the Tobacco Commission, again, showing that it was a wise way for the state to utilize its Master Settlement Agreement dollars, and one that's going to continue to hopefully provide opportunities in Southwest and Southern Virginia for years to come. And I think having loan dollars provides the opportunity to spread out the life even further of the Tobacco Commission. So I'm looking forward to working with them in my new capacity.
When we've talked before, when you were wearing the hat of ag and forestry, particularly on the ag side, the connection also with tourism was in there with wine. Now the Tourism Corporation is part one of your 13.
Right.
And what's the word that you're getting from tourism about how things are going there?
Tourism's going great. Record-setting amount of visitors to the state over the last few years, about 40 million visitors last year, $23 billion in revenue. It's the second largest private sector economic engine in the state. And I've so enjoyed working with Rita McClenny and her entire team, Andy Edmonds in the film office, from my role as agriculture and forestry.
Right.
And now working with them on a daily basis in commerce and trade is even better. They are a great organization, and they know how to market and promote Virginia probably as well as anyone, second only probably to Terry McAuliffe. But utilizing the Virginia's for Lovers campaign, that was created in 1969 and is really viewed up there with, I Love New York as the best two state or locality or region branding campaigns in America. So the Virginia's for Lovers tag is known all around the world, and it's thanks to the good work of Rita McClenny and the team there, Governor McAuliffe, governors before him who have utilized it and taken it all around the world on trade and marketing missions. And we're getting ready to leave on our 21st trade mission in November, going to Southeast Asia. And I can assure you that the Virginia Tourism Corporation will be joining us and spreading the Virginia word throughout that mission as we travel.
When you think about trade, and maybe going back to your roots in undergraduate being a political science major, when you hear discussion nationally about different trade deals that the U.S. has made in the past or contemplating making, my question primarily would be, how does this impact us in Virginia? Because it sounds like we're just doing great work in Virginia in trading with other nations.
I'm a big proponent in free and open trade. I know trade deals have to be negotiated, and you want to do everything that you can to protect workers' environmental rights and other things. But I'm I guess an internationalist, one who believes that globalization it's not only here, it's here to stay, and we need to do everything that we can to take advantage of it. So trade deals are very important. The one that's probably getting the most attention right now is a Trans-Pacific Partnership and the deal that may be signed with those Pacific Rim nations and with the United States. And it's one that will be interesting. We'll see what happens during the lame duck session of Congress. Governor McAuliffe is a very strong supporter of it, continues his role not only as governor of Virginia but also as chairman of the National Governors Association to be a big proponent of it. We believe it will help Virginia grow exports, having more open access through just literally more open barriers to tariff rate quotas coming down, barriers to entry coming down. We believe it gives us the opportunity to take advantage of those marketplaces there in Southeast Asia. And I hope that we see the Trans-Pacific Partnership go through. I mean, for people who don't understand we live in that globalized world, and we need to be able to take advantage of those markets. I know in agriculture and forestry, for every dollar of a product that goes out, the value of a product going out, there's about a $1.30 return coming back into the state, and that's from the port all the way back down to a farm. And I'll have new numbers for my new role in commerce and trade, but that one just sticks in my mind because you see the benefit of not only from the port, but all the way back to a family farm, and more and more value or economic revenue is driven off of exports, not only in agriculture, but just in general. So trade deals are important. I understand the negotiations have to take place, and you do want worker provisions, environmental provisions, making sure that the United States just isn't giving everything away to get an open door into a country. But they're so important, and they're going to be even more important in the future because, again, I talked about earlier, more than 90% of the world's customers live outside the United States. We need to be doing everything that we can to take advantage of that customer base and the economic revenue that's generated off of it.
Some people around the Commonwealth may not realize that ambassadors come to Richmond. They think they come to Washington. Doesn't matter who the president is. They come to Washington. They have offices there, but they come to Virginia. In your years, both in ag and forestry and now commerce and trade, when ambassadors come, what what we hope would be some of their takeaways when they leave Richmond?
Well, when they leave, we have two ambassadors in town today that we'll be meeting with this morning and this afternoon, and we take away that they take away all that we have to offer as a state: the products, the services, the goods. They always leave with a bottle of Virginia wine. That's a parting gift that Governor McAuliffe always leaves them. But they come away knowing more about Virginia as one of the best places in America to have business. I mean, over the last 12 years, if you take the major ranking services of Forbes, CNBC, and Polina that look at best states for doing business, Virginia ranks third in the entire nation for best states. It's pretty good. That's a 12-year, that's not just a one-year snapshot, that's over 12 years. So that shows through Democrat, Republican administrations and so forth, that's Virginia's solid pro-business, pro-growth state. So they take that away. They learn about our natural resources. They learn about all the things that we have to offer in tourism. So we're pitching Virginia obviously to do business, foreign direct investment into Virginia, more trade, more exports going out, but they also learn more about all the beauty, other things that we have to offer, because the more folks we have flying in from their countries to Dulles, to Virginia Dulles International, not Washington Dulles, Virginia Dulles, 26 miles inside the state, it gives more revenue opportunities for us. So they leave, and typically the follow-up that occurs is the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services International Trade Office staff, Virginia Economic Development International marketing specialists will connect with the commercial sectors of those embassies and do the follow-up. And you see more opportunities for trade and commerce to occur. So this is not just about sitting around having coffee and discussing geopolitical issues or the presidential campaign. It is about trying to facilitate new investment in Virginia and new export opportunities out of Virginia.
You said something that probably doesn't get a whole lot of attention, and I'd like to get you to say another word on it, that in those offices that these ambassadors have in the U.S., it's not just political, it's economic development. You said they actually have staff, the commercial staff that work out of that office to help to have trade back and forth.
That's who I deal with the most.
Yeah.
And I would, without taking any other offense to anybody else in those embassies, I think that the commercial officers are probably the most important, because they are the ones that you're trying to work with to open up more opportunities. And when you talk with them, it's a two-way street. It's not just about Virginia gaining. And I think if I've learned one thing in my 25 years in the professional career, particularly in all the international work that I've done, is as you go into these meetings, you need to understand it's not just about you winning, it's about the other side. And that's the discussion that we have. And Governor McAuliffe's brilliant at it. He pitches Virginia to the nth degree, does it as well as anyone. But at the same time, he's always trying to find out what can we do to help that country as well. Because at the end of the day, we believe it's going to be mutually beneficial, whether it's an export going out of Virginia or an investment going that direction, or folks coming here, or new opportunities on that side. So it's very, very important. There's embassies, depending on the size of the country, have a number of different staff. But the work that I do and have done over the last, almost 10 years in state government has been mostly with that commercial sector. And, we might talk politics, and particularly when there's a presidential election going on. I've been around for 3 elections, and those issues come up. But most, I'd say 90% plus of what we talk about is about business and trade and new opportunities in that realm.
Before our last minute gets by, what else in your new secretariat would you like to highlight?
I think everything that we're doing with workforce development is very important. Virginia's made some great strides, again, bipartisan fashion, working in the governor's office, working with Republican members in the House and the Senate to make sure that Virginia has a pipeline of well-trained workers, whether they're getting a 4-year degree and a 2-year degree, an associate degree, accreditation, certification. The things that are going on there are very important, and quite frankly, where my learning curve was the steepest. A lot of things going on with energy. Hayes Fromme, one of my deputies, is doing an outstanding job working with the governor's office and folks around the state to make sure that Virginia is one of the best energy states in the country. Also, community development is a big issue, making sure that the infrastructure in these localities is there not only to serve the citizens, but also help those localities attract new business and industry, or help existing business and industry grow. So if you put workforce development, community development, energy, and economic development all in the same pool, that's the Secretariat of Commerce and Trade. And again, very honored to serve Governor McAuliffe and the citizens of Virginia from that role, and I hope that I can help make a difference over the remaining 16 months so that we have an office.
time flies when you're having fun,
It
right?
does, it does.
And I guess the efforts that you'll be making will be, our viewers will be reading about and we'll see. And Todd Haymore, thank you so much for being on This Week in Richmond.
David, thanks again for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.